America is a millionaire nation. At the close of 2024, the United States was home to 23.8 million millionaires. That is 40% of every millionaire on planet Earth, squeezed into just 4% of the world's population. Last year alone, America minted over 1,000 brand new millionaires every single day. 379,000 new seven-figure households in 12 months. Headline writers called it the greatest wealth boom in a generation. Then you open your banking app, and that quiet, confusing gap between the headline and your bank balance is the story we are telling today. Because behind that 23.8 million figure is a harder truth. The median American household is nowhere near $1 million. The real midpoint of American wealth is just $192,900. And getting even that far takes most people their entire working life. So let's walk through it, decade by decade. At what age do Americans actually hit $100,000, $500,000, and $1 million? First, we need to explain the trick behind the 23.8 million figure. Most of America's millionaires aren't rich in cash. They're rich in drywall. The United States has what economists call an asset-rich, cash-poor problem. Your net worth includes the value of the house you live in, minus whatever you still owe on it. And in a country where the median home price sits around $400,000, that single asset can quietly push a middle-class family into millionaire territory on paper. Now watch what happens when we strip the house out of the calculation. The number of liquid millionaires in the United States, Americans with at least $1 million in cash, stocks, or retirement accounts, collapses from 23.8 million down to roughly 6 million. That is a 75% drop. In other words, 3 out of every 4 American millionaires would lose their status overnight if you told them they couldn't count the home they're still living in. The median net worth of the country drops even harder. Without home equity, the typical American household's wealth falls from $192,900 to around $57,900. For most families, their financial future is literally nailed to a roof. With that in mind, let's start the clock. Median net worth for Americans under 35, $39,000. That is it. Half of all young American households have less than $39,000 to their name once you subtract their debts. And a lot of that debt has a specific name: student loans. The average American borrower under 35 is carrying over $37,000 in education debt before they even think about a down payment. This is the decade of the hardest financial milestone you will ever hit: your first $100,000. There is a famous line from Charlie Munger, the late vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. He called the first 100,000 a bitch. His logic was simple. When you are starting from zero, every dollar has to come from your paycheck. You cannot lean on compound interest yet because there is nothing to compound. You are pushing a boulder up a hill with nothing but your salary and your self-control. And the data agrees with him. According to the Federal Reserve, most Americans do not cross the $100,000 net worth line until they are at least 35 years old. For roughly 17 years of adult life, the average person is running just to break even. Median net worth for Americans 35 to 44, $135,600. On paper, that looks like a breakthrough. In reality, this is the most financially stressful decade of the American life cycle. The 30s and early 40s are what actuaries call peak debt. This is when a typical household is juggling 3 enormous obligations at the same time: a mortgage on a first home, the lingering tail of student loans, and the single most expensive purchase most Americans never budget for: childcare. In many U.S. cities, full-time daycare for a single child now costs more than in-state college tuition. Multiply that by 2 kids, and you have a second mortgage that doesn't build any equity at all. And here is the quiet milestone inside this decade. According to Federal Reserve data, the median American household finally crosses $100,000 in net worth somewhere between the ages of 35 and 40. Somewhere around age 37, the typical American, working since their late teens, officially becomes a 6-figure net worth household. Nearly 2 decades of work. For the first 100,000. Median net worth ages 45 to 54, $247,200. Median net worth ages 55 to 64, $364,500. Take a close look at those numbers. Between your mid-30s and your mid-50s, the median American's wealth almost triples. The jump from $100,000 to $500,000 happens far faster than the jump from 0 to 100,000 ever did. Why? Because compound interest has finally woken up. Here is the math every financial documentary keeps circling back to. A portfolio of $500,000 earning a modest 7% annual return generates about $35,000 a year by itself. That is more than the median American worker saves in cash in an entire year. At this stage, your money starts out-earning your paycheck in the background. You are no longer the engine of your own wealth. The engine has started driving itself. This is why the years between 45 and 59 are when the most diligent Americans pull away from everyone else. Children age out of daycare, mortgages get paid down, salaries peak, retirement contributions get fatter, and compounding does in 15 years what raw saving could not do in the previous 20. Median net worth, ages 65 to 74, $409,900. That is the peak. That is as high as the typical American household ever climbs before retirement spending starts pulling the number back down. The median American, after working for roughly 50 years, never actually hits $1 million. But now look at the average. The average net worth for the same age bracket is $1,794,600, more than 4 times the median. This is the trick hiding inside every wealth headline. When you see, the average 65-year-old American is a millionaire, what you are really seeing is the top 1% doing the heavy lifting. In the United States, the top 1% of households alone hold roughly 31% of all personal wealth, about $50 trillion. The average household inside that top 1% is worth around $35.5 million. Those families pull the national average up so violently that the number stops describing any real person. So when do Americans actually hit $1 million? For the average household, it happens somewhere in the mid-50s, as the mean crosses the $1 million mark between ages 55 and 64. For the median household, it almost never happens at all. And the averages hide one more American divide, the gender wealth gap. According to Census Bureau data, the typical single American man has a net worth of about $82,100. The typical single American woman has $58,100. For every dollar a single man holds in wealth, a single woman holds around 70 cents. The gap gets worse for single mothers, whose median net worth collapses to just $10,700, barely enough to weather a single emergency. Part of this is the lingering pay gap. Women in America still earn about 85 cents for every dollar men earn. But the deeper problem is time. Career interruptions, caregiving years, and lower lifetime contributions to retirement accounts mean that the wealth gap compounds, in reverse, for decades. So here is the lesson of the American wealth curve. The first 100,000 takes about 17 years of working life. The jump from 100,000 to 500,000 takes only another 15. And for the small minority who keep going, the jump from 500,000 to 1 million can happen in under a decade. Wealth in America is not linear. It is a slow fuse that slowly becomes an explosion, if you give it enough time to light. Which means the most important financial variable in your life is not your salary. It is the gap between what you earn and what you spend, protected long enough for compounding to matter. America will probably mint another 379,000 millionaires this year. Most of them will not be tech founders or heirs. They will be teachers, plumbers, nurses, and small business owners who quietly lived below their means for 30 or 40 years. They did not get rich, they got patient. And in the end, patience, more than any salary, is the single most powerful financial instrument the average American has ever been handed. If you learned something, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video.